Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. If self-pleasure has ever felt intimidating, awkward, or not for you, Nancy is here to completely change your mind. This is a brand that makes pleasure feel safe, joyful, and actually normal, just like any other way you take care of yourself. Their products are cute, discreet, and thoughtfully designed so you can explore at your own pace. No pressure, no confusion. If you're ready to make pleasure feel a little more like you, head to hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off. You know what's incredibly hot? Feeling confident in your body. Uberlube helps me with that. Less friction, more pleasure, and more, wow, I truly feel like the best version of myself. It's clean, body safe, latex compatible, and free of parabens and preservatives. Basically, it's lube for people who care about what goes in and on their body. Want in? Head to uberlube.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at checkout. We're told to do yoga, hydrate, journal, sleep 8 hours, but almost nobody says this out loud. Pleasure is care too. I helped lead a scientific study with more than 1,000 participants looking at daily magic wand use and how it relates to stress, emotional well-being, sleep, confidence, even how connected people feel in their relationships. What we saw was simple. Consistent pleasure can be grounding, calming, regulating. Vibrators like the magic wand are real tools for wellness. If you want to see the findings, go to magicwandstudy.com and give yourself permission to actually feel good. Okay, real talk. If your vagina feels off, like recurring itchiness or odor, that's your microbiome trying to get your attention. Your vaginal health is all about balance, and when that balance gets disrupted, that's when things like yeast infections or BV can show up. The Happy V prebiotic and probiotic is designed to support a healthy vaginal microbiome and maintain an optimal pH with 7 clinically studied probiotic strains at their clinically effective dosages. If you're ready for the relief you've been looking for, head to happyv.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off your first order. That's happyv.com. Happy V as in vagina.com. Hello, and welcome back to Sex Ed with DB. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert. And today's anonymous listener question is surprisingly a first of its kind for Sex Ed with DB, and it has to do with strap-ons. Here's what our anonymous listener wrote in. I'm in my mid-20s and haven't come out to my family yet, but I've been exploring being a closeted lesbian. I've been trying the WLW dating pool, and a woman on the Her app asked if I wanted to try getting quote-unquote strapped sometime. I had to Google the term, LOL. I'm interested, to be honest, but super nervous. It is not just the physical part, but the psychological part of another woman doing that to me. Anyway, thank you for hearing this gay gal out. First of all, welcome, gay gal. Hello. Really glad that you're here. And thank you for trusting me with this. I am honored. And second of all, as a reminder, dear listener, you can write in an anonymous question and I may end up answering it on the podcast. So click that link in the show notes if you're interested. And third, if you've ever Googled a sexual term after someone texted it to you, me as well. New sexual terms are popping up left and right. There's no shame in using the internet for God's intended purposes of Googling things related to sex. So today, for this question, we are unpacking a bunch of stuff. We're unpacking why queer intimacy can feel emotionally big for some, why trying something new sexually can feel scary and exciting, the psychology and practicalities of strap-on sex, how to know if nervousness means not yet versus absolutely not for me, and how to explore new experiences without feeling rushed or pressured. Let's get into it. So quick vocab lesson, because our mission is always to deliver accessible sex ed around here. Getting strapped usually refers to someone wearing a strap-on dildo attached to a harness and penetrating their partner vaginally or anally. But important nuance, not all queer women do strap-on sex. not all lesbians want it. Not all queer people are interested in penetration at all. Queer sex is wildly diverse, and some people love strap-ons and strap-on sex, and some people hate them. Some people only like giving, some people only like receiving, some people like using strap-on dildos that also have insertable pieces inside of them. Some people are switches, aka they like both. All of it is normal. The point here is that there's no correct version of queer sex that you have to graduate into. If you are a closeted lesbian and then suddenly are not closeted, there's no expectation that you need to change your behaviors. Let's talk about why this might feel psychologically big for Gay Gal. This is the part of the question that Gay Gal wrote in that really stood out to me. Gay Gal said, "It's not just the physical part, but the psychological part of another woman doing that to me." Now, this makes total sense because often, sex is not just sex, right? Sometimes sex feels symbolic, especially when you are newly exploring queerness, or you're closeted, or you're trying something for the first time, or intimacy suddenly makes your identity feel very real. And sometimes queer intimacy feels surprisingly emotional, more emotional than people expect. And I think people imagine queer sex is going to be like soft lighting and instant chemistry and everyone magically knows what they're doing. And sure, sometimes it's very hot, but sometimes afterwards, things can feel really intense or physically off or weird in your mind or body, or just very overwhelming, because desire, again, can make identity feel more real. Our behaviors that we enact can make identity feel more real. And so, Gay Gal, it makes a lot of sense that the psychological part is another thing that you're thinking about, because as a closeted lesbian or someone who's newly exploring, I imagine that your emotional intensity can feel amplified with all of these kind of new experiences that you're potentially interested in doing if you haven't done them before, and if they just feel a little nerve-wracking for you. And that's not bad. It's just a big feeling. It can feel very big in our bodies and minds. But next, I want to normalize nervousness for a second, because I think that people often assume that if you're nervous, that means that you shouldn't do it. And I want to say not necessarily. Sometimes nervousness means that something is new or vulnerable or exciting or different. Like if you just think about a first kiss or a first queer date or a new relationship, even just generally moving to a different city or starting a new job, right? Like usually excitement and nervousness are pals. They're on two sides of the same coin. So the question I'm encouraging you, Gay Gal, to ask yourself isn't, am I nervous and is that bad? But a better question is, does this nervousness feel exciting and manageable, or unsafe and overwhelming? Because those are very different things. If your nervousness feels like you are curious but intimidated, that's really different than your body is screaming no, right? One is vulnerability, and the other might be a boundary that you don't want to cross. And learning the difference within yourself is super important. And okay, I'm going to say something radical here. You do not need a strap-on to have your back blown out during sex, even if it's two people with vulvas, two women, two lesbians, because I think that sometimes when people are newer to sapphic dating, there can be this pressure to feel like you know how everything works and how all the toys and accessories that you're supposed to have work in order to date women. And instead, you can make out, you can cuddle, you can flirt, you can explore external stimulation, you could use other kinds of toys. You can learn what you like. You can also just change your mind entirely. You are allowed to say, I'm interested in this, but I'm nervous and I want to take things slow. This is the advice I tend towards, is just being honest with somebody and saying, yeah, I am into that, but I'm kind of new here. And like, would you be interested in taking things slow with me? Especially if you're closeted, right? Like this can add a whole new dimension to not feeling ready for new things if you don't have a support system that you're leaning on, or you don't feel like you can be fully yourself with people you love or just the world around you. And a respectful partner will want to go at your pace, because good sex feels collaborative with a partner who is understanding and open. Now, if all of this has inspired you, Gay Gal, to a point where you're ready to have strap-on sex, pretty awesome. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. So let's talk about some practicalities if you do decide that you're interested in getting strapped, aka being penetrated by someone else, or penetrating someone else with a strap-on dildo. First and foremost, lube is your best friend, more than you think, and then probably even more than that, especially for penetration. If you're using a silicone strap-on dildo, you definitely want to use water-based lube because silicone-based lube can deteriorate the toy. You also want to start with a smaller dildo than you think. I think porn has deeply confused us, and bigger does not equal better, especially for first timers. And especially if this is something that you're nervous about, like it'll only make you more nervous if you choose a huge dildo and you're feeling really overwhelmed, or if a partner chooses a huge dildo. You can always build up to something bigger. Also, communication is very hot. Asking questions in a new scenario like this, like even through the dating app, right? Of like, ooh, what are you imagining? Or what pace might feel good for you? And then in the moment, if you, before you get started, want to say, what if I get nervous? What does a check-in look like, right? Like these conversations build trust, and trust always makes sex much better. It's as simple as that. Another thing you should know is that you can stop at any time, and you should make sure you're on the same page with your partner about what that looks like, right? Like midway through, 5 minutes in, before it even starts, you have the right to change your mind. You can say, actually, I thought I was ready and I'm actually not yet. And finally, I want to make it clear that you do not have to be quote unquote good at queer sex. Everyone is learning, and it really depends on the body that you are having sex with. Someone who is quote unquote good at queer sex asks questions and listens and communicates clearly and focuses on what feels good for you and your partner. So you like being quote unquote good at something, it's like not even a thing, because it depends on who the partner is and what they want and what you want in your chemistry. And so I want you to relieve that pressure from yourself. And if you think about it too, like the first time that you ever made out with someone, like, was that good? Like, probably not. Like, we get good at things by experience and by asking questions and by doing something over and over again. And so if this is your first time that you are having strap-on sex, it may not be good, and it may be like just okay or a little awkward or maybe awesome. That would be great. Please write back in if it is. But it takes time, and it's totally okay to not be quote unquote good at queer sex. So gay gal, sweet, sweet gay gal, here is what I want you to take away. Nervousness around trying something new sexually is incredibly normal, especially when identity, intimacy, a new sex act, and vulnerability are all coinciding and are all involved. You do not have to rush. You do not have to prove your sexuality. You don't have to do anything before you feel ready. And you also don't have to avoid things that genuinely interest you just because they feel emotionally big. Curiosity is awesome, and it can be really, really fun to do something new. And the goal is that you have enough safety that curiosity gets to breathe. The best sexual experiences usually happen when excitement and safety get to coexist. So to anonymous gay gal, I'm rooting for you, whatever pace that you move at. And if this happens for you someday, strap-on sex, I hope that it's communicative and respectful and pleasurable and gives you lots of joy, and the sexual experience has lots of orgasms. Thank you so, so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.